Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go.
Plan B2. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. And the Yankees have a plan B2. Yesterday, they finished a trade with the Chicago Cubs and acquired former MVP Cody Bellinger from the Chicago Cubs. I like that we have to call him former MVP because, like any accomplishment you have during your life, former World Series champion executive David Samson, you get that forever. It's not a year, 20 years, it's 50 years. It's even after you croak. Yes, Cody Bellinger was one of the best players in Major League Baseball. He and Christian Yelich seemed to be the two players who would consistently be fighting back and forth for the MVP. They were doing commercials, the faces of baseball. Then all of a sudden, Cody Bellinger fell off a cliff, not in the selfie way where you're like, oh, look, what a great picture. What a great angle. Oh my God, I'm dead. No, not that way. Just, wow, baseball's super hard. And being good consistently over the course of a career, absent drugs, is practically impossible. Cody Bellinger was not kept by the Los Angeles Dodgers when he became too expensive. He became expendable. Then he tried to recapture his career, recapture the glory days. He looked over at his agent, Bruce Boris, and he said, what are we going to do? Can you get me to a team? That was last year when Boris couldn't get his four players really signed to contracts that were, in his mind, worthy of the players that he had, thought he had, that they were. So he signed this strange short-term deal with the Chicago Cubs, where the Cubs said, we'll give you a shot, we'll give you an opt-out, and we'll pay you about $27.5 million a year. Then he had what I would describe as a mediocre year with the Cubs. And the reason I call it mediocre, before all you Cubs fans get upset over in Chicago, yeah, I'm talking to you, Greg. Why didn't he opt out of his contract? Because he could not find any team anywhere to pay him more than what he was going to make with the Cubs over these last 2 years of his 3-year deal. Then the Cubs realized, we don't want to pay him $27.5 million this year and next year. We'd much rather trade him. So they waited. The way the trade market works, when you've got a player who is clearly a second choice, third choice, 4869. When you have a player and you know that that player is the 69th choice for teams, you have to wait for the market to not just develop, but you actually have to wait for the market to happen. That's a big difference that people don't give enough time to or conversation to. Letting a market develop is what an agent says to a free agent, to his player. Hey, we're going to let the market develop. We're going to see what the domino effect will be of a signing of player X. The market happening is when you have a contract on the books where you have Alex Cobb getting $15 million for a year. You've got the new Japanese pitcher coming at the age of 62 over to the Orioles to pitch for them for a year, $13 million. A guy named Sagano. Yes, he won the Cy Young Award equivalent in Japan several times, but he is OL Triple D. Okay, that's 1 year, $13 million. That's not the market developing. That's the market actually happening. Well, what Scott Boras was thinking when Soto signed is, all right, let me see what we have for Cody Bellinger. except Scott Boras wasn't involved because Scott Boras has a player who's already signed, and the agent is not consulted ever on a trade unless the player has a no trade clause. A little funny note there. You do not, as an executive, when you're doing trade conversations with other teams, you don't say, hold on 1 second when you're talking to the Cubs about doing a trade, or the Yankees or the Rays or whoever else. Hold on, I got to speak to the agent. Let's see if we can get an understanding of how this player feels about being traded. It may sound harsh, but totally true. So the Cubs have been actively trying to trade Bellinger. They see a free agent signing of Soto, and they look at the landscape of losers, and they say, is there a fit? And there had been a rumored fit with the Yankees because the Yankees would like to move Aaron Judge to right field, maybe put Cody Bellinger at center field, talk about the possibility of Cody Bellinger at first base. There was a fit for a plan B for the Yankees. The Cubs call up the Yankees and they say, all right, we would trade you Cody Bellinger, but we want you to pay his entire salary. And the Cubs thought the Yankees were desperate for their plan B until a day after the signing of Soto. Hi, I'm David. Until the day after the signing of Soto, and the Yankees signed Max Fried for 8-2-18. And all of a sudden, the Cubs say to themselves, the best we're going to be is a plan B2 for the Yankees, but we have nobody else who's willing to pay anything. So then you start a negotiation with the Yankees. And what's taken so long for this trade to happen is that there was a disagreement about how much money the Yankees were willing to pay of Cody Bellinger's salary. The Yankees, when you're negotiating a money deal with another team, you start off with a very simple equation. You say, we will take Cody Bellinger off your hands and we'll pay him $5 million. And you've got to pay him, Chicago, $22.5 million. And Chicago says, we're not willing to pay him $22 million for him to go away. We'd rather pay him $27.5 million for him to stay, and maybe he'll return to his MVP glory. Then when you're the other team, you respond by saying, all right, we'll offer to pay $5 million of his salary, but we'll also give you the following package. This is what's known as the A package when you're doing a trade negotiation with another team. An A package is when there's two types. The first type is really good players and no money. And the second A package is really bad players and a lot of money. And generally, the team that's acquiring has a preference. The acquiring team, in this case, the Yankees, they would have a reason having to do with their budget, having to do with the luxury tax, where they would view that their only A package is going to be players and not money because they don't want to take on any money, or they can't take on money, or they feel as though their owner won't let them take on money, whatever the case is. A trade will always happen between two teams when there is actual neutrality between both A packages, because then you find common ground with the team you're trading with and you mix money and players in a way where it's easy to have a meeting of the minds and a meeting of the baseball people. But when you only have one of the A packages that you're willing to do, which is you're not allowed to take money, or you're not allowed or don't have the players, the good players to send, then you've boxed in the team that you're dealing with into only dealing with one situation. And sometimes you don't have a trade. You certainly have the rumors that are leaked, but you don't have a completed trade, which, side note, happens the overwhelming majority of the time. The actual trades that take place are fewer and further between than all of the discussions. So what ended up happening with the Cubs is they said, you know what? We'll take Cody Petit. Whatever. He started a couple games. He's at best, a C- player. At best, players are graded A, B, C, D, NP. NP is you're not a prospect. You're a bag of balls that we'll just throw in. Of course, baseball people, even analytics departments, are not brilliant. You know, from being a nothing personal fan, or we're in right now, December, I think we're like 4% new people just this month. an NP non-prospect. Dontrell Willis, the famous Dontrell Willis, was a non-prospect throw-in to a trade we did back in 2002. So NPs can become players who are good, but generally they don't. Then an A player is a Hall of Fame player. Ichiro is an A. A B is a player who is well above average, an all-star, but not every year, but will outperform until he gets too expensive. C is an average major leaguer. D is a below average major leaguer who has a roster crunch. He could be off the roster. He could be sent up and down to the minor leagues. He has a chance to become an NP, which means nothing. He has a chance to maybe become a C, and maybe twice in a career, a D player grows into a B. So the Yankees say, all right, we'll give you Cody Petit. We'll take Bellinger. But here's the deal. We want $5 million from you. And the Cubs say to themselves, all right, are we willing to put $5 million out of Cody's $27.5 million if we're getting back Cody Petit? We're not saving a lot of money. We're getting an average to below average player. Then the negotiation is, when does that money get paid? And what the Yankees and Cubs came to the conclusion, and that's how the trade happened, is that the Cubs only have to send $2.5 million this year, and the other $2.5 million they get to send next year. So that helps the Cubs cash flow. It hurts the Yankees cash flow, because if they got $5 million today, they could apply that $5 to his salary this year. And the way the money comes to you, just so you know, there's some disagreement out in the media of how this happens. Here's how it actually happens. You get money every 2 weeks during the course of the season while the player is being paid. So let's say you're making $10 million and $5 million is being paid by the team you're on, and $5 million is being paid by the team you used to be on. And let's say there are 10 paychecks. So it's $1 million per paycheck. Each paycheck, it's $500,000 from your current team and $500,000 from your old team. The old team sends $500,000 to the new team. The new team then puts its $500 plus the $500 they got from the old team. They put it together and send out one check, direct deposit to the player's account. So the player doesn't know the difference, and the team, the old team, doesn't have to give all the money at once. They give it during the pay periods. So the Cubs are going to end up paying $2.5 million to the Yankees this year over the 6-month pay periods, and then $2.5 million next year. And the Yankees get to say, we now have a plan B2, where instead of Soto, we've got Fried, we've got Williams, we've got Bellinger. And then let's add up what we're paying them. We get to tell everybody, hey, it's still less than what we would have paid Soto. And by the way, you get media people, baseball insiders, who say the Yankees may be a better team today than they were the day before they thought they were going to get Soto, and certainly the day they didn't get Soto. Of course, they're a better team than not having Soto. Fried plus Williams plus Bellinger is better than zero. But are Fried, Bellinger, and Williams better than having Soto? Let me tell you, that's sort of interesting to me, because it seems hard to imagine. 10 years from now, maybe. You know, the Yankees, one of the ways that we evaluate on this show, we didn't do it as a front office, but one of the ways that we evaluate, what are our win totals? And all of the gambling companies, DraftKings has a win total for the Yankees. Do you know the Yankees win total with Bellinger and with Williams and with Fried is 93.5. 93.5. Not a bad win total. Guess what it was last year with Judge and Soto on the same team? 93.5. 93.5. The Yankees, plan B2, seems just like the other plans. Speaking of plans, hello, Tampa. I want to take you inside the county meeting in Pinellas County yesterday, where the county board was deciding whether they were going to follow through on an agreement they had already signed and approved and float the bonds to build new Tampa Rays Stadium. What a weird thing. Voting on something that you've already voted on that's a binding agreement that's already been executed. Voting on whether you're going to do what you're legally bound to do. Wow, that seems like you're acquiescing to public pressure for more public hearings and more conversations and begging Rob Manfred to come to Tampa and Pinellas County to speak to you. Can you imagine one of the people on the county council? I only voted yes to this because Rob Manfred came to visit me. If that's not the biggest load of horse hockey, you are a voter and you vote a guy onto your county commission and you're looking at his bona fides and what he does politically and where he stands. Hey, I'm a star effer. I saw Rob Manfred. I'm a yes to the development in St. Petersburg. Give me a small break. Yes, it's true. The Pinellas County Commission voted yesterday 5-2 to authorize the sale of the bonds for the new Rays Stadium, which means there are 2 elected officials. This is unreal. There are 2 elected officials in Pinellas County who voted. Can I do this, Coca? Are they going to get in trouble? Is anyone out there listening in the legal community? There are 2 county commission members who voted to violate a legally binding agreement. That's just who I want representing me. So the vote happens, and the assumption is we got ourselves a deal. Phew. It enables Rob to do an interview on foul territory and say, hey, expansion. Let's identify cities by 2029 when I retire. We're in. We need an East Coast team. We need a West Coast team. It could be Mountain Time or it could be Pacific Time. The good news is we don't have to worry about Tampa. Interesting. Matt Silverman, the president of the Tampa Bay Rays, has a slightly different view of whether or not we should be worrying about Tampa. And I'm quoting Matt. It was unsurprising to see the commissioners acknowledge how important the Tampa Bay Rays and our stadium development agreement are to this community and its citizens. As we have made clear, the county's delay has caused the ballpark's completion to slide into 2029. As a result, the cost of the project has increased significantly, and we could not absorb this increase alone. When the county and city wish to engage, we remain ready to solve this funding gap together. Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya. I wonder whether they were holding hands after the 5-2 vote and they raised their hands in victory and said, we love our partners. I'm picturing them at the ribbon cutting ceremony when they break ground, all standing together in hard hats. I've got the picture somewhere in the studio of all of us in hard hats celebrating the start of Marlins Park when every single politician had their toes crossed. My toes were frozen out of fear that we were going to have overruns and lawsuits and even more delays and that we wouldn't be able to open on time and I would absolutely be screwed. But we have the shovel in our hand. It's 150 degrees outside and we're feeling good. I wonder if that's what the groundbreaking will be like. Or are they going to break the ground on all of the other development that now the Rays control in order to make money outside of revenue sharing, in which case they keep getting the amount of revenue sharing they've been getting, but have ways to make money, which is how they can explain their contribution to a stadium that is unlikely to actually increase attendance or interest at all with the Tampa Bay Rays. Did that sound too harsh? How do I know that to be true? Because I've lived it. I have spewed the same things that everybody is spewing around this project myself, knowing that we were taking a huge risk and that the only way that we would be able to cover our risk is if somehow the owner decided to sell the team. But don't worry, we've got control over the development. So why would Matt Silverman, in your mind, release a statement like that? It doesn't seem very thankful or appreciative or partnership like. What it shows you is that the vote yesterday was about as meaningless as me standing in the middle of town square telling you to please not go shoot anybody in schools. What's next? Well, it's outlined right here. I'll tell you what's next. The Tampa Bay Rays are not going to actively negotiate over what is the now funding gap because I would say, what is the funding gap? Where are you in the development of the stadium that you know the amount of steel you're going to have, the amount of finishes you're going to have, whether the price of steel, copper, whether the price of desk chairs, whether the price of excavation? How much are excavators these days? We got to clear the site. Let's check it out. We need design documents. Does it sound familiar, Vegas? We need construction documents. Sound familiar, Vegas? We only can tell you what the increase in the actual stadium cost will be if we've got plans. Or you can go the David Samson route. Claude Delorme, who developed our ballpark, head of ballpark operations, still to this day the only person who spearheaded a ballpark project, along with so many others, but mostly Claude Delorme and Michel Boussier, a building that was opened on time and on budget, with the budget that we set before the building started being built, before one piece of dirt was moved. Yes, I still take credit for that all these years later, because many of the stadiums that claim they're on budget have increased their budget in the middle of the project. Then they build to that number and say, look, we're on budget. Or they blow through the budget in order to open on time by having people work 3 shifts instead of 2, 7 days a week instead of 5. And then you say, ha, we're on time. Well, we were on time and on budget. There's no number right now that the Tampa Bay Rays have, but they could. They could have an estimate using their construction manager and their partners, and they could have a new budget and build to that. So what's going to happen? Negotiations, further delays, rancor, lawsuits, problems. Just you wait. Just you wait. I want to talk about signing players right now and then regretting the signing right after it happens. It's a really horrible thing when you trade for a player and you're all excited and then you realize that you made a mistake. Matt Latos, love you, man. Sort of. Minute we traded for you, I was like, oh no, I can't believe we did that. But we did. When you sign a free agent and you know it's a mistake because you see around you that other free agents signed with greater value and you overpaid and you're like, oh no, Mr. Saltalamacchi, it's so good to meet you, but God dang it, did we overpay for you? I wonder whether Arthur Blank with the Falcons is saying to himself, did I approve the Kirk Cousins signing? Before this season, the Atlanta Falcons signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million contract. Now, that may sound like a lot, but here's the interesting thing. He got a $50 million signing bonus. Juan Soto got 75. Kirk Cousins is no Juan Soto. He got a $50 million signing bonus. He got $90 million guaranteed at signing. So it really was a $90 million contract. He's earned $62.5 million this year. He's got 27.5 due to him next year. And all of a sudden, the Atlanta Falcons made an announcement yesterday. Now, Kirk Cousins has not been playing well, but the Falcons are 7-7. They're 1-4 in their last 5, but they're a game back or tied with the Tampa Bay they're tied with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they have the tiebreaker. So they only have to finish the season tied, and they're going to win the division and make the playoffs. Yesterday, head coach Raheem Morris said, quote, after review, we have made the decision that Michael Penix will be the Atlanta Falcons starting quarterback moving forward. This was a football decision, and we are fully focused on preparing the team for Sunday's game against the New York Giants. That statement came one day before. That statement came one day after the following statement from Raheem Morris, which was 2 days ago. Someone asked during the media availability, is Kirk Cousins still your quarterback? We just got back. We still have to go through that process. All those things will happen over the course of the week. We didn't play well enough at the quarterback position. 24 hours later, Kirk Cousins was benched. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Are you thinking that when Raheem Morris told you that they have a process to go through, that it was about the same as the Sixers process and that the process was already complete and they knew they were benching Kirk Cousins? Or is it possible that Arthur Blank called up Raheem Morris and said, I don't want to see that guy on the field ever again. He stinks. And Morris said, hold on. We got to at least inform Cousins first. We got to start getting Penix ready. We have to look at the game plan for the Giants, and we've got to let the media know that this is a football decision because we want to protect you, Arthur. We don't want anyone to think that you're the reason why Kirk Cousins is benched. Or do you think Raheem Morris went to Arthur Blank and said, you're not going to believe this. I am so sorry for the $160 million. I'm really sorry for the dead cap hit that's about to happen. But I got to tell you, do you want to win? Arthur, if you want to win, we can't have Kirk Cousins shooting blanks. We got to bring in Michael Penix. He's our guy. Arthur Blank said, don't be ridiculous. You're going to make us look like fools. Which got me thinking about the number of teams who look like fools because of things the owners demand get done, and then the things the owners demand get done that are opposite of the things that the owners demanded get done earlier, like a day, a week, a month, a year. I never minded when our baseball people had a change of heart. That's what I was thinking about when baseball people would come to me and say, hey, we have this player and it's not working, so we need to release him. Al Leiter, a great example. Hey, I think we should sign Al Leiter. I think he can help our team. Hey, he's not helping our team. I think we should release him. All right, what changed? Well, he can't get anyone out. Fair enough. It's a one-year deal. There's no dead cap money. I'm not upset at all. Hey, I think we should sign Deshaun Watson to $230 million. Oh, he can't win a game. And by the way, he can't stop committing assaults. Hey, I think we got to sign Daniel Jones. Oh, I think we better release him. It's just interesting to watch how owners and football people come to conclusions about players with the absolute, they do it with integrity and they do it with verve, with meaning. We believe in this guy, and then it disappears like in thin air. Explain that to me. 18 years running a team. I always made an excuse why I changed my mind about a player. And I always blamed it. Oh, it's current performance. My evaluation process is sound. The decisions that we made at the time, that's what I would always say publicly. If I knew then what I know now, of course, maybe there'd be a different decision. But what I knew then is what I knew then. And my process to make a decision on what I knew then was perfectly sound, perfectly defensible and reasonable. Well, don't you think you should relook at your process that has you spending this money on a quarterback and then flushing it down the toilet? No. Don't be ridiculous. That would make me look bad at my job. I have to tell you that it's something that happened outside of my control, like the player all of a sudden stinking. Who would have seen that coming? Michael Penix is head coach of the Falcons. I wonder whether Baker Mayfield is doing the Snoopy dance. What is he? Not the head coach? He's the quarterback. I said head coach. Sorry. All right, let's take a break. I cannot wait to talk about the movie that I watched the other day to review for you. And then I want to talk NBA, both the All-Star game changes that happened and the NBA Emirates Cup that came to a conclusion last night, because the NBA has some interesting things going on right now, and we'll cover it after the break. What a break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Thank you for all that you do. Please make sure you spread the word. Even though we're 1,189 regular episodes into this show and a bunch of sit downs and mailbags, I still love the word of mouth. I love when you contact me at David P. Samson on Twitter or at davidsamsonpodcast.com. Keep reaching out and giving me your ideas and thoughts on the show. I pay attention to all of the critiques and all of the love, and I appreciate them both equally, actually. Sportspodcastawards.com. Do not let Pablo be the only show that wins. We cannot have Pablo Torre Finds Out win Best Sports Documentary Podcast, which it needs to win because it is. But it's got to be accompanied by the sporting class and Nothing Personal. Best sports business, best baseball. You've got this. When you make a movie, you have a budget. There's a budget for what you pay the director. There's a budget for what you pay for production. You have a production manager or a unit producer who's in charge of budgets and making sure that everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. There's a new movie out called Juror No. 2. Juror No. 2 is a movie that is directed by Clint Eastwood, who I believe is 118 years old. And I love the fact that his career is going to finish because this is his last movie that he's going to direct. And it's a movie that will help keep Clint Eastwood in your mind forever. What would you do if you were Nicholas Hoult working with Clint Eastwood and the part you were playing was of the husband of Zoe Deutsch, who's Leah Thompson from Back to the Future's daughter? You may have known her as the girlfriend in Why Him with James. I'm no longer canceled, but I sort of am, Franco. Nicholas Hoult plays someone who's on a jury, Juror No. 2, and he is hearing a case that is being prosecuted by Toni Collette. The defense attorney is Messina, whose first name just escaped me, unfortunately. He was in Ruby Sparks. He's been in a bunch of movies. He's fantastic. And you know a lot about this crime because you may have committed it. Whoa. And then you have a fellow juror named J.K. Simmons, the Academy Award guy from Whiplash. That guy who's also on the jury, who may realize what's going on, but may not. And he may not be able to be on the jury, but he may. And then you don't know what to do because you've got a family to protect, but you've got a secret to keep, and you've got justice to be served, and you put it all in the mixing bowl, and you get a Manischewitz chocolate Passover cake. It tastes really good, but you recognize that it would be better if it weren't necessarily kosher for Passover. That's my view of Juror No. 2. I liked it. It satiated me. Could it have been better? Would I have liked another pound of sugar and maybe a stick of butter? Maybe. But I really loved seeing Clint Eastwood and thinking about him directing this film from his chair in Walker, realizing that the pinnacle, the penultimate, well, it's actually not, it's the final move of his career was to direct a movie that will keep you satisfied, satiated, interested. Juror No. 2. NBA All-Star Game. Disaster. I used to love the NBA All-Star Game. Remember when Magic Johnson was allowed to play in the All-Star Game even though he had retired from the league because he had tested for HIV positive? And they let him in, and there was a question way back then. This is back in 92. Coca, you can fact check me. The All-Star Game that Magic Johnson played in when he was no longer a player, I want to say his press conference was 91, but he played in the 92 All-Star Game, and there were questions back then when people didn't understand AIDS and just were ruled and governed by fear. What if he sweats on me? Am I all of a sudden going to wake up with AIDS? Should we be on the same court? Should I still kiss Isaiah Thomas? The All-Star Game used to be amazing. The slam dunk contest, the three-point contest, the weekend was something that everyone looked forward to. Broadcasters loved it. And then over time, the NBA players said, God, I make so much money. I'm really only interested in shooting 70-foot shots. I'm really only interested in seeing if we can score 200 points. We don't need to play defense because we're going to pretend we're the NFL Pro Bowl. And let's just see if the broadcasters and fans are happy. And it turns out they're not. All right, we have another possibility. Let's name team captains, and instead of East versus West, let's do a draft. We'll do it live on Inside the NBA, and we'll put the biggest vote getter in the AFC against the biggest vote getter in the Eastern Conference versus the Western Conference. We'll have Giannis, we'll have LeBron, we'll have Durant, we'll have Steph, whatever we can have, and we'll see who gets drafted last. Oh, it looks like LeBron drafted Anthony Davis. I wonder whether he's going to go to the Lakers. Remember all that intrigue? Except it didn't matter. All right, let's try something else. Let's float a trial balloon of doing a 4-team tournament on All-Star Sunday. I'm sorry, what does that mean? All right, let's get 4 teams of 8. We'll have 3 teams that consist of 8 All-Stars each. Then we're going to have a 4th team that consists of the rising stars, which are the young players in the NBA, and we're going to have them all play each other, and the winner is going to be the winner of this All-Star tournament. What? I don't even understand what you're talking about. Let me explain further. We're going to take the ever-popular TNT, soon-to-be ESPN, in-studio analysts, Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, and Kenny Smith. We're going to make them the GMs of teams, the NBA All-Star teams, those 8-player teams, 3 of the 4, and we're going to have them draft their teams. This way, players won't be upset with players because they're drafted last in a playground pick. They can be angry with the retired players who are making more than almost all of them. And then we have a 4th team. We got to work in a woman. We have to work in the WNBA. Let's get Candace Parker, the retired WNBA star, to be the GM of the Rising Stars team. Because then we can say that we're all about equality and we're all about continuing to bolster the WNBA and women's sports. And we can look at ourselves and not just put little phrases like choose love in the end zone or on the court. We can actually choose equality. No one's going to see through that. Of course, we could have had Candace Parker be the GM of one of the 24 All-Stars cut into 3 teams of 8 and made Shaquille or Kenny or Charles be the Rising Stars GM. What would be the difference? I wonder whether they couldn't come to agreement. But don't worry. We've got the incentive. You're not going to make $514,000 to win like you do if you win the Emirates Cup. But if you win this tournament, we'll give you an extra $125,000. What do you think? And if you're a runner-up, we'll give you $50,000. If you lose in the first round of this tournament, we'll give you $25,000. I know that's probably not enough to gamble with, but don't worry, we won't be in Vegas. We'll be in Golden State. We'll be in Frisco. Players are despondent. Kevin Durant just came out and said, what are we doing? What are we doing? He actually said, I hate it. Strong word. Absolutely hate it. Even a stronger word. It's terrible. We should just go back to East-West, which, of course, is what Coca said. I don't understand. Let's just have an all-star game. So on February 16th, we're going to watch this tournament, and we're going to be all excited when it gets promoted because of the draft of the Inside the NBA guys and who's on what team. It won't be East-West, and you'll have players really playing hard. They're going to play tough defense because they're going to say, we want the $125,000. We need the $125,000. We're not settling for 25. Nothing personal pick of the day. Coca, we have a problem. I had to wait to see on a date that I don't have in front of me because I forgot to look at the date before the show, and we're live and I don't have a prompter. But the wait to see was after I got off to a slow start in January with picks of the day. And the wait to see was we'll get back to 500. Well, guess what? I have to officially take a no on that because I'm 170 and 181 after 351 picks. Pathetic. January 6th cannot come soon enough. Boy, I wish I hadn't put those date and that sentence together. Oklahoma City. Just yesterday, we told you that they were the favorite in the Western Conference to represent them in the NBA Finals, which is still going to be 4 out of 7. Oklahoma City looked so bad yesterday. Adam Silver, before the game in Vegas, was talking about all sorts of things with the NBA Cup. He was saying, hey, it may be next year at the home cities. I wonder where we got that. We talked about it yesterday. Hey, we think the players love it. They're into it. Meanwhile, the Bucks win the game. They don't celebrate at all. No champagne, no nothing. Are they going to raise a banner like the Lakers did to celebrate winning this in-season tournament in a game last night that doesn't even count for your standings or for your career stats? It's like it didn't happen. Poor Giannis with his, I think he may have scored 30 plus and 15 plus rebounds. Guess what? That won't be reflected in his final Hall of Fame first ballot stats. Nor will it be reflected that Oklahoma City couldn't hit the ocean from the sand with a beach ball with no wind in a vacuum that had weights in it. Their three-point shooting was so disgusting, ridiculous, and full of bricks that they built a new baseball stadium in Vegas immediately with the bricks that were laid by Oklahoma City. But luckily, Adam Silver before the game said, I love watching our game. I love our product. I don't care what Shaquille O'Neal said. All these threes, mwah, it's a chef's kiss of beauty. The only thing beautiful about last night's game? Nope, nothing. Not one thing. Of course, I'm happy for our Bucks. I love the Milwaukee Bucks, you know that. Oklahoma City -5 over the Bucks in the NBA Cup finale. That's an LOSS, which means we're 170-81, which means we've been officially eliminated. Because tonight, we're not even giving you a bet. We are wallowing in the misery of our incompetence. And we are praying that you, along with DraftKings, will recognize that tomorrow's another day. And we will start fresh on January 6th at 0-0. Just you wait. Major League Baseball makes me smile. I loved being a part of the industry. I love that part of my career. I love this part way more. I love being with all of you every day. You may think I'm a cynical bastard, but I'm not. I'm a regular, ordinary, nice guy. My pants go on one leg at a time. Sometimes I trip and fall when I try to do it 2 legs at a time. I do sit down to pee, though, because I can't stand the thought of cleaning up any sort of drippage. But there's one thing that you should know about me. That when I talk about things that are going on in baseball, you're not hearing them anywhere else because no one else wants to tell you this, but they really are true. MLB released a report yesterday, and they're calling it the pitching report, the report on pitching. I've got 4 letters for you. GMAB. Give me a break. Major League Baseball studied. They spoke to trainers. They spoke to doctors. They spoke to players. They spoke to owners. They spoke to GMs. They spoke to your average man on the street. They spoke to anyone involved in amateur baseball, youth baseball, college baseball, professional baseball. They paid so much money to do a report on pitching and injuries. And when I tell you the takeaways from this report, I am going to ask that during the course of this next segment that you refrain from laughing, smiling, rolling your eyes, picking your fingernails, or in any way doing anything physically that would manifest disgust, shock, surprise, or awe. I would like you to sit there as you're doing your work or watching or listening to the show live on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, and I'd like you to be straight-faced, look ahead, and hear me now and listen to me later. When pitchers try to throw hard, they're going to get hurt. No way. No way that was the conclusion. Can't be. Many years ago, when I first got into baseball, there was something called the Blue Ribbon Report. If you don't know what it is, Google it. They got 4 brilliant, brilliant men to do the Blue Ribbon Report. George Will, Rick Levin, former president of Yale, George Mitchell. The Blue Ribbon Report was not written by the people. The Blue Ribbon Report was not written by the people on the Blue Ribbon panel. The Blue Ribbon Report was written by Major League Baseball to have the conclusion that they wanted about steroids in the game, and that would exonerate those who needed to be exonerated, that would have no absolute possible paper trail toward anything nefarious going on, but would list some names that would remain confidential, though they never did. What would be the incentive for having a report on pitching that would give you a takeaway that people are chasing velocity, that we have problems going all the way back to youth, and that we need starting pitchers to both train better, not be in the weight room as much, do some cardio training, and please come to spring training in better shape, and then have your arm built up so that you won't get hurt, and then get paid for not pitching? Golly, I can't even fathom why that would be the results of the baseball report on pitching. It took them 1 year, to tell us what they told us they were going to tell us, because they've told us what is the truth, which is when pitchers are getting hurt, it is because an arm can't throw 100 miles an hour on a consistent basis without it falling out or your ligament going poof in the night. It is not natural. It's not like, oh, a 3-point stroke. If you take 23 pointers in a game and you put your wrist forward in the follow through, eventually every tendon in your wrist is going to break. It's going to like split from your hand, and you're going to be broken, and you're going to get paid not to play. Nope, not exactly true. It may look ugly. You may lay more brick than Rock Hudson, but at the end of the day, you're okay. Baseball, it's not the case. It is not normal in any way to throw a ball, but here's the problem that's not addressed in the 62-page year-long report. The only way to fix pitcher injuries is to not pay them for not playing, or in the alternative, not pay them through arbitration or free agency for stats that are based on velocity, or in the alternative, to actually have a demerit, a reduction, a negative for not going deep into games as a starter, for not being able to pitch back to back, for not having an arm that works because you don't care if your arm works, because you're in the bullpen the first day of spring training throwing 97 because you think the GM and the president are going to look at you and say, "Ooh, look at that gas." Like Coach Lou Brown, the manager of the major league team, forget the curveball. Show him the heater. It's what we all tell the players. What we tell them is, you don't have to show us on the first day of spring training that you can throw 99, but if you happen to throw 89, we're going to release you. We are so inconsistent with the messaging that we give to major league pitchers because we pretend we care about their health and that we're not going to comment on their velocity. We're going to let them work themselves up. We're going to let them build themselves up. But if they're not long-term contract holders of a team and they're just minor league invites to spring training, we don't care if they get hurt. We just release them. We've got to change everything about the system of how we both evaluate and put our team together. We have to change the entire way in which we pay players, because if we actually cared about pitchers getting hurt, which we only care about the pitchers signed to long-term deals that are getting hurt, we don't care about the other ones. So the study rightfully should have been how to stop owners from giving pitchers long-term contracts. That would have been a 69-page essay that would have had every single long-term contract by a pitcher and how the expected value and return of that contract you were going to lose every single time. You have one pitcher pitching 1 year and throwing as hard as he can for as long as he can, and then he's hurt. See you later. It's a cost of doing business. Bring on the next guy. But when we have to announce every single spring training, this guy's out for Tommy John, this guy's out for Tommy John, and pitchers are like, they're no longer despondent to have Tommy John. They're being paid, their arms in a brace the next day, and they're throwing from the mound a few months later, ready to rock and roll. we can come back in 8 months if we're a reliever. Everybody's a reliever now. Except with starters, you have to hold them back even further because you have an investment into them long term. I've got a new study that I'm going to do, and it's not going to take a year. It's the study of the money that's going to the players in baseball. Because at the end of the day, no matter what you want your study to say, no matter who you pay to say it, the truth is, it's just business. We'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.